YouTube, it's Satch. Welcome to the Porsche Network. In this video, I'm going to share with you 10 things that I think all Porsche 911 owners should know. I've owned about six Porsches over the years, and I've picked up a few things in that time, and I'm going to share those with you now. I'm not going to go too technical, but some of the information that I am going to share is really important. Before we do that, make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you don't miss a single thing. You can also follow the Porsche Network on Instagram and on Facebook. Owning a car like this really should be about enjoying the car, getting out in the open, putting your foot down, making your heart beat just that little bit faster, not sort of worrying about the cost of the car, what's potentially going to go wrong with the car, but obviously there are important things that you need to understand about these cars. And the video really does focus on the 911 997 variant, but some of these things I'm going to share with you can be carried over into other 911 ranges, such as the 996, the 991, possibly even the 992. Number one on the list is something that you'll probably encounter while it's actually cold outside, while during the winter months. If you're getting your car, say for example, and you're driving at slow speeds and the steering wheel is on full lock, you'll hear or you'll feel through the car a kind of a popping sensation or a wheel judder sensation. A lot of people think that this is a problem with the car. As strange as it sounds, that is the way the car has been set up. It only happens at slow speeds. Doing it there, you can't really hear it that well. I can see why a lot of people are quite annoyed by this, because it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like the suspension components are strong enough to deal with the car or the full lock of the car. Honestly, don't worry about it, just keep driving. You probably won't even notice it during the summer months. Number two on the list are engine problems with these 911s. Bore scoring and IMS are two of the main issues that you will find with these cars. It mainly covers the 996 and the 997 variants in the 911 range, and there are a lot of guides out there. I'm going to put two links below this video in the description. These I feel are what best represents and best explains the IMS and bore scoring issues, but they are very serious issues. They only affect a very small amount of cars, but you do need to understand what these problems are and how they could affect you in a future purchase and indeed your current car. If I was to sum up the bore scoring in one sentence, I would say that bore scoring can lead to engine failure. It doesn't affect the 997.2 turbo or GT models. You need to listen for a tapping noise at idle, look for a blackened near side exhaust tip, and if you do see any of these, don't drive the car, get it checked out immediately. With regards to the IMS bearing failure, this can also cause catastrophic engine failure. Most 2006 onwards have a stronger, larger IMS bearing fitted. As I say, a lot of these problems are blown way out of proportion, but it's still something you need to know about when possibly buying or owning one of these cars. Number three is charging your Porsche when it's not actually in use. A lot of these cars, they may well only get driven at weekends, and sometimes if the weather's bad or the owner's got something on, they may not be able to drive these cars for maybe 3 and 4 weeks at a time. What happens then is that the driver comes back into the car, tries to start the car, absolutely nothing. May get a few lights, but just a few clicks, the car won't start. The battery is basically dead, and it's a common characteristic on a lot of these cars, not just the 911s, but the Caymans, the Boxsters. They all do exactly the same thing. Ask me how I know. I've been there many times. What I do now though is I charge the car up on a trickle charger, and I'm going to recommend the C-Tech charger, which is absolutely fantastic for these cars. You simply hook it up to the battery of your car and it charges the battery while the car is not actually in use. Now, next up is body styles. A lot of people I speak to are completely unaware that there are so many different variations in body styles of these cars. Some cars have wide bodies, some cars have narrow bodies. Now, this is a Carrera 4S and it has the wide body, which is what I love. I love that rear wide stance, but there are some narrow body cars. So the narrow body cars include the Carrera S and the GT3. The wide body cars include the Carrera 4, the Carrera 4S, the GT3 RS, the Targa 4 and Targa 4S, the Turbo S and the GT2. With the wide body cars, the hips stick out that extra, I think it's like 1.75 inches as opposed to the narrow body Carrera cars. Just a handy tip if you did want to know the differences between the wide body and the narrow body. Number 5 on the list is service costs. I've lost count of the amount of people I've spoken to who think these cars are expensive to run when it comes to services. And yeah, to an extent they can be. That's if you're taking the car to a main dealer every time. This is a 14-year-old car. I don't see the point in taking this to a dealer. And I've got a few figures for you that may make you sit up and realize that actually they cost just the same as, say, a BMW 3 Series or a Mercedes C or E-Class to actually go ahead and get a service done. So I've recently carried out an oil filter, an air filter change on this car, and it cost me a grand total of £90. I did all the work myself on my driveway, which is ideal if you've got a driveway or a garageway to work on your own. If you don't, then yeah, you may need to take it to, say, an independent garage. When I first bought this car, I did take it to a main dealer garage, and it cost me about £590 for a very similar type of service, although they did do the brake fluid as well. Now, a few additional items: the 6 spark plugs will cost you about £43, and the 6 cylinder coils will cost you about £200, which in the grand scheme of things, to keep your engine in good condition and to keep the car running well, is not a lot at all. Now, despite what some service schedules say, I'll change the oil and the filters on this car every year. I'll probably change the spark plugs around about every 4 years, and to be honest with you, I'd only change the ignition coils if one of them starts to go. If one of them goes, the next one's going to go. You're best off just changing the lot at the same time. Number 6 on the list is something that I'd recommend to every Porsche owner, not just Porsche 911 owners. This is the iCarSoft Porsche version 1.0 or POR version 1.0 kit, and you'd be surprised about how many times people have got a check engine light or an ABS light or an airbag light on the dashboard, and they're going to take it to a garage who are just going to charge them £50 to £60 just to hook their tool up. These tools cost about £99, and it's going to allow you to diagnose and reset any fault codes, any warning lights on your dashboard. It'll even do the service reset light as well. So if you've got, say, for example, a check engine light, an ABS light, an airbag light, the chances are these faults are down to a faulty sensor. This tool will tell you exactly where the faulty sensor is. Once you've changed over that sensor, this will allow you to then go in, reset the fault code and reset the warning light, all for a price of about £99. If you were, say, for example, to go to a garage and they diagnosed it, let's say for an example, an O2 sensor, and they said, yeah, okay, it's going to cost £60 to hook it up, it's going to cost another £50 for the part, it's going to cost another £50, £60 labour, you know, you're looking at up to £200. You can get this for nearly £100. You can get the sensor, do it yourself for about £150, and you've always got this tool on hand to check any other faults at any other time. So number 7 on the list is the warm-up process. When you start the car, unfortunately there is some varying advice online as to what you should do when starting the car. You know, should you get in the car, should you start it and just drive straight off, or should you let the car warm up for a certain amount of time? As I say, there's a few different guides out there, and it's not to say that those guides are wrong or correct. I just think this is the way that I think is correct. So I'm going to run you through my warm-up process and my starter process now. So step number 1 is to just start the car as normal. Then let the car idle for around about 30 seconds until the RPMs drop below 1000 RPM. Once the RPMs have dropped below 1000 RPM, you can start driving the car immediately, but keep it below 2000 RPM until the car is up to temperature. And when the engine temperature is right in the middle there on the 80-degree mark, then it's your time to put your foot down. You can open the car up full send, and you don't need to worry about keeping the car under a certain RPM. As I say, that's just my way of doing it. It doesn't necessarily mean my way is the correct way, but I personally think it is. I think the reason for allowing the car to sort of idle for about 30 seconds on initial startup is because, you know, you want the RPMs to drop initially. Then when you start driving the car, there are lots of moving parts in these engines, and they do need to be lubricated. The only way to lubricate these is by actually driving the car. So number 8 on the list, we're going to be looking at a few of the popular and the more expensive options on these cars. When these cars were spec'd from the factory, obviously whoever was buying the car is able to spec the car up and choose which systems they want to include in the car, depending on how much they want to pay, depending on how much their budget is. But obviously when you're buying one of these cars used, it's in your best interest to try and get one with a good spec and a high amount of options. So let's take a closer look at some of the options on this car. It has a sports exhaust, which is good for obvious reasons, the only radio you'll really need on these cars. This car also has the GT3 Aero kit, Well, when I say GT3 Aero Kit, I did actually have a spoiler in this car, which I've since removed, but everything else remains. Now this car has the Sport Chrono package, which is a popular option, but not seen on all 911s. Inside the car, you'll see sat-nav, multifunction steering wheel, deviated interior stitching, and the last one is an X51 power kit. The X51 power kits were quite expensive and also quite rare, so don't be too disappointed if you can't find a car with the X51 power kit. So number 9 is that you should probably expect your social agenda to increase significantly. There's no denying that the Porsche 911 is a beautiful car. You should expect a lot of attention at petrol stations, in build-up areas, and even boy racers chancing their luck. I think every car enthusiast will tell you that it's nice to hear feedback on your car, and it's nice to hear that people actually like your car and take an interest in your car. So it makes you really feel like you're doing something right somewhere along the line. And the chances are, unless you're living in the middle of nowhere, you'll find a lot of enthusiasts in your area. For me personally, I'm part of the Porsche Club UK, or Great Britain as they call it, and also the 911 UK. Porsche Club Great Britain is great for days out, runs out, track days, events, and they're always on offer, and that really leans itself to making new friends and meeting other like-minded people who also have the same passion for these cars. In the summer months, you probably should be able to expect to find an event on every single weekend. Now number 10, and the last thing on the list, is unfortunately which something I didn't really want to put on, but I feel I have to if I want to sort of level the playing field and be honest and true about what you're possibly going to expect when owning one of these cars, and it is the fact that you're probably going to need to have deep pockets. You don't need to be rich, you don't need to be really wealthy, but you are going to have to put your hand in your pocket from time to time. And a lot of these cars are getting older. Take for example my Carrera 4S. It's a 14-year-old car, but the car wants for nothing. It's serviced regularly, it's maintained well. Pretty soon it's going to need some cooling components and some suspension components. Show me a 14-year-old car that won't need these things doing to it. Spending £2,000 to £3,000 on a car like this for cooling and suspension is very much worth it, and it represents a small value and a small percentage of the value of the car. Ultimately though, you're gonna need to keep money aside for repairs, for warranty, for servicing. They are sports cars after all. They have hundreds of complicated moving parts that need to be looked after. This does come at a cost. Just save a little bit extra each month and I guarantee you'll be absolutely fine. It's a small price to pay to have these beautiful sports cars at our disposal to play with. And that's it. I hope you've been able to take something from this video. If you have, please go ahead and click that like button. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit that subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss a single thing. You can also follow the Porsche Network on Instagram and on Facebook. I'll be back really soon on the next episode of the Porsche Network. I'll see you next time.